lake life was different. For me, back then, it was much more different than it is now. It was fun in Maine, and most of it was spent without a care in the world. We went almost every school vacation we could, and yes, even in the winter. This is actually our camp. This was at day 5. I can't even tell you what day 1 and 4 was like. We got it up to 40, what was it, 41 degrees?
Yeah.
By the time we actually left for. So that was a fun winter vacation. And that was me on the snowmobile. And yes, it's 2.5 miles into the camp, on the camp road, and you can only go snowmobile in, so we could only take a person out at a time. You had to bring provisions. Anyways, we started on an island where it was just me and my parents. Am I moving too much?
No.
No, I'm asking
No,
because
it's fine.
I got that thing sitting here.
You're good.
Okay, this is me and my parents. We did have visitors to the Blessed Mass. We only stayed a couple of years there, just right for an 8-year-old to spend his full summers on an island with my parents. That was a blast. Moving on, we moved to the next spot where I learned many water fun things. I learned water skiing, swimming, holding my breath to be the lake champion, boating, tag in the water. If anybody's ever played in a lake Marco Polo, it's real hard to find people because they can be wherever. And so many other fun things we did, especially with a family of 8 kids next door. They were great, they lived right beside us. I also found out that year what a phone bill was. When we came home from Connecticut, I just happened to make a few calls and wanted to talk to my friends. Well, that didn't last too long, as I got a hint with a pad of paper handed to me to write with. That truly was a fun and amazing time. I went to join the military, and for some reason, I chose basic training to be held from May to July at Fort Jackson in Columbia, South Carolina. That face was that face when I realized Fort Jackson in Columbia in the summer. I learned firsthand what heat and fire ants were. Speeding up a little bit, I did get through that. I finished my college degree while I was in the military as well. I finished that while I was out. I had a paper due. I was out in the middle of the field just before Desert Storm. And I had a flashlight in my mouth. We had a typewriter that was a typewriter, not a computer. The teacher said we could write about anything. I had an English literature class. She didn't take my first paper because it wasn't on the topic. So I said, okay. So I went ahead and I just rewrote that same paper and sent it back to her. She said we could write about anything. So she gave me a C. I said, I don't care, just give me my degree. That's all that matters. My 3rd week of airborne training. Everybody's done eating, correct? I'll go over this one real quick. Crystal laughs about this one. In the military, for some unknown reason, they feed you a good breakfast. And this was at Fort Benning, Georgia in August. So let's just, for some reason, I kept going to the hottest places in the country at the most opportune times. Well, I went to Fort Benning, and we got up at 5 o'clock and we had breakfast. This was before our first jump ever out of a plane. And you carry your backpack, you carry your chute, you carry your secondary chute, your weapon, your helmet. You're hot, you're sticky, you're miserable. You've been there 2 weeks. This is the 3rd week in the first jump out of a plane. They loaded us in. I had bacon, eggs, sausage, pancakes, waffles, because they told us you won't be back till late tonight. So they feed us all that stuff. Got in the plane, they load us up, we're all crunched in together, we're sitting there, they open the door, you're at the jump spot. you're running through your mind, what do I do, what do I do, what do I do? You get up, you hook your lanyard up, you're walking along, you're pushed, cramped together, kind of like you are when you're trying to get on a plane nowadays, when they call your numbers, because that's how it is. I got to the door. As I got to the door, I uked. And when I did, the poor person behind me caught most of the breakfast. I tell that story because Crystal likes to hear that story. I just cannot imagine what that must have been like for that poor person. I apologized to them. I even bought them a drink when we got done for that. But that was just one of those stories. War story, no, but it is what it is. I was stationed in Korea. Now I'm smiling. I was stationed in Korea and had been stationed, been through there, been through twice. I did see North Korea 3 times as a medic. I stress the term I see 3 times, not to go. I was there, we did patrols, and we got to see the North Koreans. It was kind of an interesting place because they would wave at us, and we would wave at them. Because their patrol knew where we were, and our patrol knew where they were. And we had to stop at the spots so they would know. Not too much fun, not weird stuff, but anyways. I was able to go to the Summer Olympics in Seoul. For Christmas while I was there, I got to escort a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader for the day. Nice Christmas present. Some more of my spots, as Nancy said, you're home away from home. We did get to ski there. Skiing in Korea is quite an interesting thing because only the rich, beyond rich, can ski there. So the lift lines were very small, and it was fun. And then that was their tickets. Their tickets were $2.08. And you could go in and go to the front row of any event. That, of course, was the year the U.S. men's basketball team got beat and didn't make it to the gold medal. So, moving right along. Oh yeah, that's myself as well. I was in Europe, South America, and many fun places all over. I worked for the military during the day in the NCO clubs as a bartender and night manager from time to time in my spare time at night. Fort Drum in upstate New York was a fun place as well. Watertown is similar to here. In fact, you had to have your food or have it at home at 8 o'clock. If you get hungry, there is no delivery. After all, that was the late 80s. Not like here. Wait a minute, yeah, it is like here. The next millennium. I went on and retired from the 101st Airborne Air Assault at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and yes, having never been to Fort Bragg. Along the way, I became a Mason, as my grandfathers did before me. My plan is to eventually take some time and try to become a Knights Templar within the Masons. I want to know where the treasure is buried once and for all at Oak Island. I also want to be ready because the History Channel says the Masons want to take over the world. Funny, I have not seen anything or any inkling of that. I guess fake news, I guess. All of this helped me to mold me into the quirky kind of guy standing here before you. All right, this picture. I show you this photo behind me, of course, when I was very young. I think my father was trying to tell me, get used to it. Life will keep you there quite often. I also remember his advice to me when I talked about not going to college and going to the first ITT Tech instead. You don't want to go there. You need to be a teacher. There is no future in computers. Thanks, Dad, for that wonderful wisdom and wealth of information. Oh yeah, on his 90th birthday, wait, I'll tell you that at a later part of my speech. All of this in my life changed when I met a young woman through a mutual friend. She dropped my jaw, and I would never be the same after. Everything before that moment. Okay? That's Crystal.
I think it's when he's like fetish off too much, yes. She's beautiful.
Of course. Do I have to be on record by saying? Everything before that moment kind of made me go through life and grab what I could as I went. But when I saw her informally, I just knew. I even told my dog Kodak, I just feel like I have a rewrite of my life and it's about to happen. So when we talk about knowing me, you have some tidbits in my life at this point already, before, but ones I'm going to tell you now, and truly what I want you to remember forever. Calling and talking to her for hours. That's another one. Calling and talking to her for hours because we lived in separate states and lived 5.5 hours away. Was the norm for us. We talked on the phone and on the computer so many hours. We learned so much. There was no big deal. There was no telephone bill like before. One day as we were finishing up, I just blurted out, "I love you." As we ended our call, we had not really dated or officially met at that time. As there was silence on the other end of the phone, I thought, dude, you really? And then all I could hear was Frank Sinatra's song, "Something Stupid," playing in my head. Crystal called back, and we decided at that point, well, we needed to formally meet up for a weekend before we get deeper into this relationship. I was like, really? How much farther can I go? We finally met a few weeks later, and I did what every other boyfriend would do. I took her out for a nice place for dinner that was in Myrtle Beach, and then we went for a walk on the boardwalk and to Build-A-Bear. What a weekend. Before the first Christmas, I had to, and that's one other picture, I had to meet her parents, Mom and Dad. My parents were just happy I met someone, as my dad says, "Wow, you finally found a looker." We went to Charlotte to a Panther game with her parents to a hotel for the holidays. There we met many family members as well. Her father told Crystal on that trip that I would give her a diamond ring instead of a necklace. I am that deep for her. She just was like, yeah. And that's awesome. She just laughed. We went to meet her I'm sorry, let me back up. She just laughed. At that point, we went to meet my parents that February for my dad's 90th birthday party. And yes, we bought my dad an iPad. There is no future in computers. My mom, my dad. The rest of them, and some of those people are not here today, which is sad. Crystal fit in great with them because when she got out of the car and we were walking to my parents' place, she hit me square in the back with a snowball. My mom and dad laughed and talked about that often. My dad and Crystal talked college basketball, Duke versus UConn. That was so much fun to watch. My mom and I talked well into the evening. Once in a while, we would hear a damn it or worse from the basketball coaches watching the game. They loved her from the start. We bought KFC chicken and brought it over to them for our first night. My mom made a graham cracker pie, my favorite. This would be the last one she would ever make for me again. I enjoyed that moment and will cherish that feeling as we became a true family that weekend.
Aw.
We dated for the next year or so when I did call her dad and asked for her daughter's hand. They were like, take her. I said, you don't even want the 2 goats and the 3 blankets for her? No, they were nice. And I met her at a weekend in Charleston. I stopped at the VA to get my backpack. Some more of that. Stopped at the VA, get my backpack. Crystal went with me. It was in on a Saturday morning. We headed to the back stairs, down the loading ramp, and down the back area. I got on one knee, the same spot. I told her I loved her for the first time on the phone, and she said yes. We married on April that year. I set up go-to-meeting where my sister and brother and my parents made popcorn and watched us get married.